Hi guys, Drake, the artist. The name itself means dragon or serpent. That one's pretty obvious. He made a song called God's Plan, and it was released on an EP extended play album, which was called Scary Hours. It was released on the 19th of January, or 119, which is 9/11 backwards. It was released on Tidal, which is a music sharing service. Tidal obviously references you to tidal wave, tsunami. The song length is 3 minutes and 18 seconds, or 3:9, which could interpret as the 3rd of September, or if you're looking at the 3 as a 24-hour format, the 15th of September. Keep those two dates in mind. Now, God's plan isn't the Heavenly Father's plan, it's the opposite, it's the Antichrist plan. They're planning to bring out the Antichrist, and I believe they're going to do that through CERN. CERN is mired in satanic symbolism, Shiva the Destroyer, the 666 symbolism, the Shiva Destroyer dance that the employees do, the references that they talked about in terms of seeing ghostly images and the experiments, some of the experiments that they've done. So it's clear that they're, trying to break the spiritual barrier and bring the Antichrist through. If you don't believe that, then you just can't possibly believe in the Bible. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, of course, but against wickedness and spirits in high places. So it's entirely possible that these people are trying to break that barrier and bring forth what should not be brought forth, but according to the Bible, will be brought forth. Now, in the iPad Goat video, there's a point in the video where I think they may be referencing CERN itself, and it's this point here with the starry-like background, whole mystical, ghostly-like figure coming forth. What I didn't notice before, when I noticed that I noticed when I was making the video, is right here underneath the armpit of the Antichrist. There's an eye. I think you guys should be able to see that right in the middle. You've got the iris and the pupil, the white of the eye. You can follow the outline here to see the eye itself. The darker line underneath the armpit of the Antichrist also forms the eyebrow. Over here, if you look closely, you can see the ear is also shown partially, and around this blue light we've got here is the actual outside of the head, or the outline of the head rather. It's not a full face. They've kind of taken it off at this part here, so you've only got like what would be the upper right of the person's head, and the eye is showing quite clearly here. I think you guys should be able to see that. So it's all kind of there symbolically. So if this is CERN, I looked at the CERN events that are going on around the 3rd and the 15th of September. They don't have any events on either of those. They don't have any events on the 15th of September. On the 3rd of September, they have events, but they don't really jump out on me. When I look for these things, I look for things that kind of jump out at me straight away. On the 4th of September, they've got PB collisions with Alice, and that did jump out at me because obviously Alice is possibly a reference we've got in the iPad Go video with this girl here. She could also represent Eve, but she could also represent Alice and other characters as well. Won't go into all of them. There are many. But counting on from that, when she drops the apple, this is all just a train of thought. She drops the apple and it rolls 7 times and starts to roll for the 8th, but kind of gets stopped by Obama's foot. 7 days down is the 13th of September, which would be Journal Club, which means nothing to me. But the next day, the 14th of September, they've got an event called High Lumi, Welcome, Half Day. And obviously, when I think of High Lumi, it's the word Lumi taken from illumination or luminescence, which references the Illuminati and their sun worship, sun god, sun Ra, and all that kind of stuff that they do. They're kind of saying hi and welcome, which to me suggests that he's arrived or is about to arrive imminently, which brings me to September the 15th, which is the next day after that High Lumi Welcome Half Day. On Ventuski, they have the weather map showing Hurricane Florence around the East Coast at that time. This is a projection to September the 11th at 7 p.m. UTC time, which is 2 p.m. Eastern time. It's the furthest I could go at this moment in time. Looking at its current distance from the East Coast, if it is approaching that, if it is going that way, I won't know until the next couple of days upload. But it's not going to be anywhere near the East Coast around September the 11th. Could possibly be there around September the 15th, which is 4 days away. As I mentioned, if you go back like 5 days to the 6th, you can see the relative distance it's traveled from there to about there. So looking at that from this perspective, that distance would be about equal distance to there, which would be another 5 days or 6 days, which would bring it into around September the 15th, possibly 17th, which is another number I've looked at, and putting a small watch on that one because it is just a connection to the number 17, and you have the QAnon and all that kind of stuff going on. So I think there may be some significance with that number. If there is, we'll find out, I'm sure, before the year is over. But last year, around this time, September the 9th, is when Irma was making impact on Puerto Rico, Cuba, and moving into Florida. By September 11th, it had moved up Florida and was coming out into the Atlantic. It was being followed by Jose, which we thought was going to make an impact along Florida, up the East Coast, even possibly New York. We saw it loop up and swing round by September the 21st. It had approached New York and was moving outwards, and then Hurricane Maria was taking the electricity away from Puerto Rico and killing what we know is over 3,000 people. At the time, only around 74 was being reported. A complete tragedy, and something that is still not really being taken care of in the way that it should. The excuse of it being an island is just extremely poor. In this day and age, there's so much technology, so much human innovation that could have been brought to bear on that part, but because it's part of their plan, I believe like a test for what they wanted to do on the mainland, it's not been treated in the way that it should have, which is in itself a tragedy. But it looks like we're having a similar kind of scenario going on, and with Jose and Maria, from J.K. Boggart's interpretation, which I kind of agree with, they kind of did this little dance around each other in the Atlantic off the East Coast, and then kind of joined together and moved off towards the east in the Atlantic. It was almost like if you take those names, the modern day names would be, the olden day names of those modern names would be Mary and Joseph, and the dance together and the kind of connecting and moving off would be a symbolic gesture of sex, basically, and that would be the production of Jesus, or in their reference, symbolic reference, the Antichrist. So a year later, around that time, we've got Hurricane Florence going on, whose name literally interprets to flower or to blossom, which again is another reference to birth. At the same time, we've got the events with CERN, High Lumi Welcome Day, and I think there's some significance in all of that. It may not be, but that's what I see. As mentioned, the length of the song God's Plan that Drake released, 3 minutes 18 seconds, or 3:9, could interpret September the 3rd or September the 15th. From looking at all the things that I've got in this particular video, there's more connections to September the 15th in terms of something flowering, blossoming, than there is to September the 3rd. But I'm not discounting either date or the entire date range between those days, extending to the 17th included. So when I was looking at September the 15th, I thought, what else occurs on September the 15th, or is there any other relevance to September the 15th? And I probably knew this before, but I didn't remember when I searched September the 15th. All I did was put September the 15th into Google just to find out, is there any significant events or anything happened significantly on that day last year that I wasn't aware of. Prince Harry's birthday, as you saw when I changed it over to this page. Prince Harry is obviously someone I've talked about quite a lot. A few videos on my belief that he is connected to the Antichrist system, if not the representation of the figure himself. Born on September the 15th, around this time, High Lumi Welcome Day, the illumination, the flowering with Hurricane Florence. He is 33 years old, which is the highest level of masonry, if you want to interpret it that way. On September the 15th, he goes to 34, which you could look at as moving beyond the highest level of Freemasonry, which would, symbolically make him the enlightened one. Again, with the reference to the Queen versus the President Obama boom video, we've got the 1815 straight on the time here, which you could look at as 6 12-hour format, 3 12-hour format, flip them upside down, 9-3, or September the 3rd. Again, you could look at that as September the 15th if you wanted to change it in that way. Looking around September the 3rd, though, I've already talked about the O2 and the possible connection to the Kevin Hart comedy and something happening there, associated with maybe the TFO or the London Transport Network. And right here, possibly encoded around that date frame, September the 3rd, we've got the network he's using, O2 UK. The battery bars 6 and 9 add up to 15, which again could be taken as 15 or 3, depending on how you want to look at it, if you're looking at it in 24-hour or 12-hour format. So there's a few connections that are being made there. Whether they should or shouldn't be, remains to be seen. But I thought I'd point them out because when I do my videos, I just start with one thought. I start thinking about one thing, and then it generally leads me onto another thing and another thing. So with the Drake thing, I was just thinking about the video itself, and then obviously I thought, Drake, that means, when I didn't look it up, I thought it meant like fire dragon. When I looked it up, it meant dragon serpent, which is not too far after the interpretation. And then the song itself, when I started looking into it, realizing it was released on 119, which is 9/11 backwards, that made me look at the time, which gave me a possible date reference. The album itself, entitled Scary Hours, which I thought, okay, Scary Hours would be a possible connection to a 9/11 event. It would be Scary Hours. The hours themselves, the way they've written it, looks like the red lines that they've got going through the lettering, looks like dripping blood. And I thought that's ominous and unusual. Releasing it on Tidal, the music service, Tidal Wave. Again, that's another 9/11 event that we're possibly looking at here. Not possibly looking at, that we are looking at, that could possibly happen, is what I meant to say. And then these whole references to CERN. I've had a few comments about CERN in the last couple of days, which must have been on my mind when I was thinking about what was going on here, which kind of led me to the iPet Goat video and the eye that we saw there. The events at CERN, the High Lumi Welcome Day, that stood out. The same time, around that time, I believe Hurricane Florence will be making movements towards the East Coast to blossom, to flower, and that has connection with the Antichrist emerging. And then around that same time being Prince Harry's birthday, which is one of the figures that I think is connected to the Antichrist system, or is the representation of the being himself. And then there's the Boom video, the O2, the UK, the 9:15 or 9:3 tomorrow, or in roughly 2 weeks' time, just under 2 weeks' time. So you guys, that's all the information I've got for you guys. As always, feel free to comment and let me know what you think. Have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and may the Heavenly Father bless you.